Mabuhay! I am LUSTAñas, and today I will be discussing all about the step-by-step procedure in business registration, business ownership, marketing, and how to compute for the product pricing. So first one, we have the business registration, which includes a total of 11 steps. First is to register the business name with the Department of Trade and Industry and the Bureau of Trade Regulation and Consumer Protection to gain the exclusive right. Second step, we have obtain a barangay clearance as required by the local government code with a minimal fee. For the third step is the registration with the local government for the necessary licenses and permits. Fourth step is the BIR registration or Bureau of Internal Revenue, especially for the tax identification number and the authority to print receipts, invoices, and etc. Fifth step will be the SSS registration because Social Security system offers both the employees and you as an employer many benefits, especially in cases of disability or death. Sixth step is the dollar registration. It is required for businesses with 5 or more workers. Seventh step is securing a membership with PhilHealth. And eighth and ninth step is to establish utility connections like electricity and water. 10th step is to secure telephone services, and lastly, registration with other offices like the Bureau of Food and Drug, Garment and Textile Board, Department of Tourism, and even the Philippine National Police depending on your type of business. So securing a business permit necessitates a locational clearance, lease contract, or ownership documents, DTI or SEC registration as applicable, barangay clearance, public liability insurance, financial statements for renewals, resident certificates, and any other special permits. Locational clearance prior to a building permit requires architectural plans, barangay clearance, title documents, tax payments, and potentially a notarized authorization. So securing a business permit necessitates a locational clearance, lease contract or ownership documents, DTI or SEC registration as applicable, barangay clearance, public liability insurance, financial statements for renewals, resident certificates, and any other special permits. So locational clearance prior to a building permit requires architectural plans, barangay clearance, title documents, tax payments, and potentially a notarized authorization. So when applying for a business name online in the Philippines, your proposed name must adhere to the revised implementing rules and regulations of the Republic Act 3883 or the Business Name Law. And the name cannot suggest unlawful, immoral, scandalous, or improper activities, be a name, term, or expression already designating a specific product or service, duplicate a registered trade name, trademark, or business name, be detrimental to national security, be a purely generic term, be legally restricted or unappropriable like Red Cross or ISIS, be officially used by the government, be the name or abbreviation of a nation or international organization without authorization, be prohibited by court or administrative order, be another person's name, or be deceptive or misleading. Now we will have a comparison across all the 5 business structures. First, where to register. So the sole proprietorship and partnership register their business names with the Department of Trade and Industry. Corporations and one-person corporations register with the Securities and Exchange Commission, while cooperatives register with the Cooperative Development Authority. In terms of attaining personality, sole proprietorship and partnerships lack separate legal personality, where the owners or partners are personally liable. Corporations and one-person corporations and cooperatives have separate legal personalities, distinct from their owners or members, and it can be acquired upon their registration with the appropriate government agency. So this registration formally establishes them as distinct legal entities. When it comes to the structure or members or owners, sole proprietorship have one owner-manager. Partnerships have 2 or more partners. Corporations have shareholders with management by a board and officers. OPCs have one owner stockholder. Cooperatives have members who jointly own and operate the business. For the source of capital, sole proprietorship and OPCs rely mainly on the owner's funds and limited external funding. Partnerships use partners' contributions and some external funding. Corporations can raise capital through equity and debt financing. Cooperatives use members' contributions, loans, and potentially government grants. For the liability, sole proprietors and general partners have unlimited liability. Corporations, OPCs, and cooperatives generally offer limited liability, protecting personal assets from business debts. Limited partners typically have limited liability. So who is liable? In sole proprietorship, the owner is liable. In partnerships, general partners are liable while limited partners have limited liability. Corporations and OPCs are liable, protecting the shareholders or owner-stockholder. Cooperatives are liable, protecting the members' personal assets. So in terms of succession, sole proprietorship and OPCs dissolve upon the owner's death or retirement unless a succession plan exists. Partnerships dissolve upon partner death or withdrawal or by agreement. Corporations have perpetual existence. Cooperatives continue even with the member changes. In terms of profit sharing, sole proprietors and OPC owners receive all the profits. Partnerships distribute profits according to agreements. Corporations distribute profits as dividends to shareholders, while the cooperatives share profits among members based on bylaws. So now to differentiate the difference between a general partner to a limited partner in partnership. So the general partner's liability in a partnership is unlimited, so meaning its personal assets are at risk when it comes to the partnership's debts. Meanwhile, in contrast to this, the limited partner's liability is limited only to their investment to the business, so their personal assets are protected from the partnership's debts. Typically, general partners also have more control or more involvement with the business. However, the limited partners have limited involvement with the day-to-day operations of the business. So what is the difference between partnership and joint ventures? So partnerships and joint ventures are actually both a collaborative business arrangement. However, they differ significantly when it comes to formality, duration, and purpose. So partnerships are more formal, ongoing business entities, and they have a more defined legal structure. However, joint ventures, on the other hand, are less formal, typically involves a temporary collaboration for a specific project. And they also differ when it comes to commitment and liability because partnership can be compared to a wedding. However, joint ventures is more like a short-term project team. Now, let's proceed with the Barangay Microbusiness Enterprises or BMBEs. They enjoy income tax exemption and minimum wage law exemption. However, franchises, multi-branch businesses, and those with assets exceeding 3 million pesos don't qualify. DTI registration requires a BMBE Form 01 and supporting documents like the business name, permits, financial informations. BIR registration involves Form 1905 and further financial declarations confirming the business sole proprietorship status. Note that while income tax is exempted, other taxes and permit renewals are still required. So moving on to marketing, an offer is a specific proposal to enter into a contract containing sufficiently definite terms to be legally binding upon acceptance. So it demonstrates a clear intention to be bound by the terms presented. Meanwhile, an advertisement is a broader communication intended to attract attention and generate interest in a product or service. So it's a form of marketing aiming to persuade the audience but not necessarily containing all the elements needed for a legally binding contract. So the case of Pepsi commercial on television is actually an advertisement and not an offer because first, the purpose is to actually attract attention and get the interest of the customers, but they didn't expect that one person would really take it that seriously and take this advertisement as an offer. So this is an example of a misconception about an advertisement and an offer. So if it is not a legally binded contract, then it is considered an advertisement. The types of marketing communication. So we have advertising, direct marketing, sales promotion, personal selling, and public relations. So advertising includes print and broadcast ads, packaging outer, packaging inserts, and motion pictures. We have direct marketing, which includes catalogs, mailings, electronic shopping, and telemarketing. The next one is sales promotion, and its examples are contests, games, sweepstakes, lotteries, premiums, gifts, sampling, fairs, and trade shows. For personal selling, we have sales presentation and meetings, incentive programs, and samples. While for public relations, we have press kits, annual reports, speeches, and seminars. So we are now down to the last part of this discussion, which is how to compute for the product pricing. So first, we need to get the expenses included in the variable cost and the fixed cost. So once we add the two of them, we will add the profit margin as well as the tax, which is 12%. And then we will get the total cost plus decide on our selling price. So the difference between a non-food and food products is that in food products, aside from the profit margin and the tax, we will also add a buffer cost. So now I'm going to show you a step-by-step process or example on how to compute for a food and non-food products.
So for the first part, we are going to compute for the product pricing in the food category. So we are going to make crinkles, so 50 pieces of crinkles for this production. So for the variable cost, we have the cost of goods sold, which is 800 pesos. Next is packaging, 400 pesos. And promotional materials, which is 2,000 pesos. For the fixed cost, we have the utilities, which cost 1,500 pesos. And the labor, which is 1,000 pesos. So first, we're going to solve for the variable cost. So we're going to add the cost of goods sold, which is 800 pesos, packaging 400 pesos, and promotional materials 2,000 pesos. All in all, we have a total of 3,200 pesos, and then we will divide it to the number of products that we will make. So 3,200 divided by 50 will be 64. For our fixed cost, we're going to add the utilities 1,500 and the labor 1,000 pesos, and all in all we will have 2,500, and then again divided to the number of production or number of products to be made in this production. So 2,500 divided by 50 is equals to 50. And then after computing for the variable cost and the fixed cost, we are going to add them. So the variable cost 64 plus the fixed cost 50 is equals to 114. So to add the profit margin, since this is a food category, of course, we will have a 100% markup. So 114 times 2 will be 228. And then next we'll add the tax, which is 12%. So 228 times 0.12 will be 27.36. So 228 plus 27.36 is equals to 255.36. And last one, again, since this is a food category, we are going to have a buffer cost. So 255.36 times 30% or times 0.30 is equals to 76.608. So 76.608 plus 255.36 is equals to 331.968. So that will be our total cost. So for our selling price, we are going to sell it for 340 pesos per box. So each box has 6 pieces of crinkles. So next, I'm going to show you the computation for the product pricing in non-food category. So we are going to make 150 pieces of a customized souvenir mugs. So each piece of mug costs 35 pesos. So 35 times 150 will be equals to 5,250. So for the variable cost, we have the materials, which cost 1,800 pesos. Next is the packaging, 3,500 pesos. So for the fixed cost, the utility, it costs 1,500 pesos. The labor, 800 pesos for 2 manpower. And then for the mug printing machine, it costs 8,000 pesos. So to solve for the variable cost, we are going to add 5,250 pesos for the cost of the mugs, for 150 pieces of mugs, 1,800 pesos for the materials, and then 3,500 pesos for the packaging. All in all, we will have 10,550 for the variable cost, and then divided to the number of products or for the production, which is 150. So 10,550 divided by 150 is equals to 70.33. And then for the fixed cost, we're going to add 1,500 for the utilities, 1,600 for the labor since we have 2 manpower, and then 8,000 pesos for the mug printing machine. All in all, we have 11,100 pesos divided by 150 is equals to 74. So to add the variable cost and the fixed cost, 70.33 plus 74 is equals to 144.33. So to add our profit margin, which is 20%, 144.33 times 0.20 is equals to 28.9. So 144.33 plus 28.9 will be equals to 173.2. So for the tax, which is 12%, 173.2 times 0.12 is equals to 20.8, and then 20.8 plus 173.2 is equals to 194. So 194 will be our total cost, and for the selling price, we are going to sell our mugs for 195 pesos. So as we can notice from this computation, we invested in a mug printing machine which cost 8,000 pesos. So to ensure our return on investment, we are going to divide the cost of the mug printing machine, which is 8,000 pesos, to our profit margin, which is 28.9. So 8,000 divided by 28.9 will be 277. So that means we need to sell 277 mugs in order to ensure our return on investment.